The movie begins with an agent walking quickly through a long corridor, carrying two briefcases. His face is serious, and his steps are hurried. He soon reaches a staircase and heads down to the basement of the building. The basement is dark and tense, and the agent's focus sharpens when he spots a ticking time bomb. Without wasting a moment, he gets to work, trying to defuse the bomb with the tools he has. As he concentrates on the bomb, he suddenly feels uneasy, sensing that he's not alone. He stops and grabs his gun, scanning the room nervously. The silence is broken when someone fires at him. He ducks and fires back, but the situation becomes more dangerous. The bomb is still ticking, and time is running out. The agent realizes he can't waste another second. Ignoring his own safety, he grabs the bomb and moves toward a device in one of his briefcases, trying to place the bomb inside it to contain the explosion. Just as he's about to finish, the bomb detonates. The explosion is powerful, throwing the agent back and injuring him severely. He lies on the floor, bleeding and struggling to move, but his mind stays focused on his mission. He starts reaching for his second briefcase, determined to finish what he started. At that moment, the mysterious attacker steps forward. Instead of finishing him off, the man picks up the agent's briefcase and hands it to him. The agent, barely able to move, quickly enters a code into the briefcase, his hands trembling but precise. The next scene shows the agent lying in a hospital bed, heavily injured and bandaged, especially around his face and mouth. His superiors visit him, showing admiration for his bravery and dedication. They praise him for going to extreme lengths to complete his duty, even at great personal cost. Despite his injuries, the agent listens intently as they assign him a new mission. His task: to stop a dangerous terrorist known as the Fizzle Bomber, who has been causing chaos and fear everywhere. The stakes are high, and the agent knows he must stop this terrorist before a devastating attack takes place. A few days later, the doctor removes the bandages from the agent's face. He explains that due to the explosion, the agent's face and voice have completely changed. The agent takes a moment to process this, but eventually accepts his new reality. The story then jumps forward 7 years. The agent is now fully recovered, though he looks and sounds very different. Sitting in a quiet room, he takes out a tape recorder and begins recording details of his last mission. It becomes clear that this mission is deeply personal and very important to him. In the next scene, the agent meets with his superiors. They hand him a weapon and explain the rules of his mission. They warn him that if he strays from the mission or fails to follow orders, they won't hesitate to eliminate him. He is also given the same briefcase we saw at the start of the story. This briefcase clearly plays a critical role in his work. The date is revealed to be November 6, 1970. The agent starts his new mission by going undercover as a bartender at a small bar. He seems to be waiting for someone. Soon, a man enters the bar and asks for a drink. The two strike up a casual conversation, talking about random topics at first. The agent then steers the conversation toward the Fizzle Bomber, the terrorist he is tasked with stopping. As they talk, the man mentions that he is a writer for a ladies' magazine. Surprised, the agent asks how he, as a man, can understand and write about women so well. The writer smiles and replies that he used to be a woman. He then begins to share his unusual and personal story. On September 13, 1945, a man leaves a baby outside an orphanage. This baby grows up to be the writer. The orphanage takes the baby in and names her Jane. She is a girl with a bright mind and a curious nature, especially when it comes to space. As Jane grows older, she begins to wonder about her parents and why they left her. Jane is different from the other children. She is physically stronger than most and can keep up with the boys. On top of that, she excels in her studies, particularly in math and science, which she loves. Despite her talents, the other children at the orphanage treat her differently, often teasing or excluding her because she doesn't quite fit in. Over time, other children are adopted, but no one chooses Jane. She eventually accepts that she might never have a family. As Jane grows up, she meets Dr. Robertson, a scientist who sees her potential. Dr. Robertson tells her that her skills in science and math are exceptional, and he offers her a chance to train and work for his organization. Excited by the opportunity, Jane agrees. During the selection process, Jane performs exceptionally well in her interview, impressing the team and securing her spot. Her training begins, and she proves herself to be highly capable. She is given a space simulation headset to test her reactions. While other girls become nervous and struggle, Jane thrives, enjoying the challenge. Her confidence and skills shine through in the rest of the tests, and she consistently outperforms expectations. During a lie detector test, Jane reveals that she feels something is wrong with her, though she can't explain exactly what. Not long after, Jane gets into an argument with another girl, which escalates into a physical fight. Due to her incredible strength, Jane knocks the other girl out. Both of them are taken to the hospital for medical checks. While examining Jane, the doctors discover a major issue with her body. This discovery leads to her disqualification from the program. Heartbroken, Jane begins packing her belongings. Dr. Robertson arrives to inform her of the decision and apologizes sincerely. He promises Jane that he will do everything in his power to get her reinstated in the program. program. Despite his words, Jane leaves and starts looking for ways to support herself. Jane eventually finds work as a maid in a household. While working there, she meets a man, and their lighthearted conversation reveals how much they have in common. They quickly bond, and Jane finds herself looking forward to seeing him every day. Over time, her feelings grow deeper, and she falls in love with him. One day, while sitting together on a park bench, they talk for a while before the man says he needs to leave. He promises to return soon, but never comes back. Jane is devastated, but eventually comes to terms with the situation and moves on. She refocuses on her dream of getting back into the Space Corps program, dedicating herself to her goals. Sometime later, Dr. Robertson pays Jane a visit. This time, he reveals a shocking truth. Space Corps was never a real organization. Instead, it was a front for a top-secret government agency that seeks out brilliant, exceptional individuals with no family ties. These people are trained to become agents for the government. Jane is confused by this revelation, but senses the gravity of the situation. A few days later, Jane discovers she is pregnant. Around the same time, Dr. Robertson stops contacting her, leaving her to face everything on her own. She is admitted to a charity hospital, where she eventually gives birth to a baby girl. However, the delivery is complicated, and Jane has to undergo a cesarean operation. After the surgery, Jane receives shocking news from her doctor. The doctor explains that Jane is biologically different from other women. She was born with both male and female reproductive organs. During the operation, complications arose, and the doctors had to perform a hysterectomy, removing her female reproductive organs. The doctor further reveals that her suppressed male organs will now begin to develop, and over time, she will physically become a man. Jane is stunned, struggling to comprehend what she's hearing. Despite this overwhelming revelation, Jane decides to raise her daughter on her own. For a brief time, she finds joy and purpose in being a mother, but her happiness is short-lived when, one tragic day, her daughter is kidnapped. Jane searches desperately for her child, but all her efforts lead to nothing. Heartbroken and filled with despair, she loses the only thing she had left. Jane remains in the hospital, where she undergoes several surgeries over the course of 11 months to fully transition into a man. By the end of this period, Jane has accepted this new reality and begins living as a man. She decides to apply to Space Corp once again, hoping to revive her dream, but is rejected because the organization already knows the truth about her transformation. With her dream completely shattered, Jane decides to leave her old life behind. She changes her name, moves to New York, and begins living as a man. From this point forward, Jane is no longer Jane. She is a man, ready to forge a new path in life. After leaving his old life behind, Jane starts writing to cope with everything that has happened. He writes a series called Confessions of an Unmarried Mother, which becomes his main source of income. Through his writing, he shares his painful and unusual story, finding some solace in the process. At this point in the story, Jane finishes telling his tale to the agent. The agent, having listened patiently, asks John, formerly Jane, if he wants to take revenge on the man who ruined his life. Without hesitation, John replies that he would kill him if given the chance. The agent then reveals that he knows who the man is, and even where to find him. John is skeptical until the agent tells him his current real name, John. Hearing this, John is shocked but starts to believe him. To avoid confusion, the story now refers to Jane as John. Even though John struggles to process the agent's claims, he begins to trust him when the agent mentions that he works for Dr. Robertson. With a mix of disbelief and determination, John agrees to go with the agent. The agent takes John to a basement where he reveals a briefcase that he claims is a time machine. He explains that with its help, they will travel through time to complete their mission. The agent sets the briefcase, and together, they travel to Cleveland, Ohio in the year 1963. For John, this is his first experience with time travel, and the journey leaves him feeling unwell. However, he quickly recovers as they arrive. The agent gives John cash and new clothes, preparing him for the mission. He then explains the target, John's ex-boyfriend, who is none other than the notorious Fizzle Bomber. John is shocked but listens carefully as the agent lays out the plan. The agent promises that if John kills the Fizzle Bomber, he will be offered a job with Space Corp, fulfilling the dream John thought he had lost forever. With the mission set, the agent leaves John to carry it out on his own. On his way, John bumps into a young woman, and it's revealed that she is the girl he once fell in love with, Jane. John realizes he is his own ex-boyfriend, and the events from his past begin to play out exactly as they had before. He behaves the same way he did during their first meeting, completing the loop of their relationship. From a distance, the agent watches everything unfold. Meanwhile, the agent attempts to use the time machine to travel back to his original destination, but something goes wrong, and he ends up in a different time and place where the Fizzle Bomber is planting another bomb. The agent confronts the bomber, leading to a chaotic gunfight as the bomber dodges and flees. The agent chases him through the area, but the bomber gets the upper hand, sneaking up from behind the bomber points a gun at the agent. The agent manages to dodge the shot, and a physical fight breaks out between the two. Despite his efforts, the bomber overpowers the agent with a single punch, leaving him unconscious. When the agent regains consciousness, he hears gunfire in the distance. Rushing to the scene, he arrives just as the bomb explodes. To his horror, he sees his own past self caught in the blast, badly injured. The agent realizes this is the same moment he experienced earlier. He approaches his injured past self and hands him the briefcase. His past self then uses the time machine to escape, setting the loop into motion. The agent finally understands that he is trapped in a never-ending time loop with no clear beginning or end. Accepting this painful truth, the agent gathers the pieces of the destroyed briefcase and leaves the scene. He travels to 1964, where his frustration boils over, causing him to break things in anger. After calming down, he reminds himself of his mission and refocuses on his purpose. Back in 1963, John and Jane are on a date. During their conversation, Jane begins to notice something strange. John seems eerily similar to her. As they talk, John reveals to Jane that he knows things about her that no one else could. Jane is shocked and initially denies his claims. But as John continues to tell her secrets only she would know, she eventually accepts the truth. John is her future self. John tells Jane that he understands her pain deeply, more than anyone else ever could. This shared understanding brings them closer together. Meanwhile, the agent is staying in a hospital where Dr. Robertson is also present. The agent shows Robertson a piece of the bomb, revealing evidence that he made an illegal time jump. However, Robertson brushes it off, saying the agent is skilled enough to overlook such rules. The agent, however, expresses his reluctance to continue with the mission. He explains that completing it will only bring harm to Jane, which he doesn't want to be a part of. Robertson insists that the mission is essential and explains its true purpose: to create an agent born out of a predestination paradox, an agent with no beginning and no end. The agent reluctantly accepts this logic, though it weighs heavily on him. Now, the shocking truth is revealed. The agent was at the hospital when Jane gave birth to her baby. He was the one who stole the baby and took her back in time to September 13, 1945, leaving her outside the orphanage. This means that Jane's baby is Jane herself, completing the time loop. After this, the agent uses the time machine to travel back to Cleveland, Ohio in 1963. There, he sees John and Jane sitting together on the same park bench where they had sat before. Watching from a distance, the agent waits as John notices him. John promises Jane that he will return soon and walks over to confront the agent. Filled with anger and confusion, John points a gun at the agent, demanding answers. The agent calmly tells John that he understands his pain because he too once felt the same. John, however, is consumed by rage and frustration at the realization that his life is part of such a massive conspiracy. He declares that he truly loves Jane and cannot accept what is happening. The agent then explains everything: the time loop, the predestination paradox, and what is going to happen next. John is shocked and struggles to process the truth, but the agent assures him that none of this can be changed. It is all part of an unbreakable cycle. John looks back at Jane, sitting on the bench, for one final moment. Though it breaks his heart, he accepts the truth and realizes that he must leave her now. The agent takes John to the headquarters and tells him that from here he can start living a normal life. However, due to the effects of time travel, John becomes very weak and collapses. He is rushed to the hospital. While John recovers in the ward, the agent and Dr. Robertson talk outside. John, eager to complete the mission, asks Robertson for the final details on how to catch the Fizzle bomber. Robertson gives the agent the last piece of information and explains that after this mission, the time machine briefcase will self-destruct. The agent and Robertson say goodbye for the last time. The agent leaves behind all his recorded messages for John and travels to New York City in 1975 for his final mission. There, he sits in a chair, waiting for the time machine to self-destruct, but instead, it shows an error. Frustrated, he looks through the clues Robertson had given him about the Fizzle bomber and realizes he needs to find a specific typewriter. He tracks it down in an antique store. While waiting, the agent starts writing a novel to pass the time. After finishing the book, he signs it with the name John, revealing that the agent and John are the same person. This realization leads him to connect the dots from Robertson's clues. The Fizzle bomber is none other than himself in the future. Determined to stop the Fizzle bomber, John takes a gun and tracks down his future self, who is now old and has become the infamous terrorist. The older version of John tells him that all the killings were done to save even more lives, claiming that he prevented worse disasters. Horrified, John struggles to understand how he could ever become such a monster. The older John insists that it's inevitable and part of destiny. John refuses to believe it and vows that he will never turn into the Fizzle bomber. However, as the argument escalates, John becomes overwhelmed with anger and shoots his future self, killing him. In doing so, the time loop begins again, ensuring the cycle continues.